Hi, I'm Christine from Vala. I want to talk about the NDIS planning process. I know that's jargon, so I will break it down to the different steps. So, developing up your first plan, and then what you do once the plan comes, you need to be the customer and start connecting with services. And then after a period of time, you will have a review. So I want to talk about those three topics in this planning process talk. So firstly, what does the NDIS plan format look like? The NDIS plan, the front of it will have your NDIS registration number on it and some basic introduction stuff. And it is important that you actually know that your number is there, because you will have to quote that to all the services that you are going to buy supports of. The second part of the plan is the About Me section, and that's part one. And you get a page just to talk about your story, where things are at for you. What are your needs? What are the things you love to do? What are the barriers that have got in the way in the past to you being able to do the things you'd love to do in your life? Might be that you want to shift out into your own independent living, your own flat. Well, what have you tried? So you put that stuff in that About Me section. In the second section is the goals that you have. And the NDIS is really interested in life goals and so do remember, when we get to the goals part, we'll talk more about what goals are and help you with a few examples of that. But it's very important, because the NDIS will only fund the things they think will support you to achieve your goals. So those goals are very important. Part three is your informal supports. Now, informal is jargon for they're supports that are either from unpaid people, such as family or friends or neighbours, and supports that are coming from other parts of the service system out there. So they're not going to be funded by the NDIS. So it might be health supports from the local community health centre. The NDIS is not going to fund that, but that is a support that you may have. It might be a peer support group that you go to, or a parent support group that you go to. It might be a specialist or a doctor or a particular activity that you want to keep in your life. And it's really useful for the planner to get a full picture of what all the things in your life. But those things that you list in this section are not things the NDIS are going to fund. So do remember that when you're deciding on that. Part three is also includes the reasonable and necessary supports that the NDIS has agreed to fund. Now, I'm not going to go into what that jargon means. We do have another video on what is funded as what is not, and it explains what reasonable and necessary means. And also the NDIS has a fact sheet on that you can get off the NDIS website. All right, so that's what the plan looks like. We then want to look at, how do we get one of these plans? Okay, so we do have another video that goes through the process for different groups. So there are new participants coming into the scheme who've used no disability services before, and that is a different way of getting in. And then there are the people who are currently using disability services already, and they get a quicker in to get their plan done. So I'm going to go through just really quickly, because this is covered in that other video, but it is important for you to remember. So you will get a phone call to do some of the paperwork, and then a phone call from someone saying, I'm your NDIS planner. Now, what we need to remember is the NDIS planners come from two different places. It can be a public servant working for the National Disability Insurance Agency, the government body that runs the scheme may be your planner, or it might be that you get a planner who calls themselves an LAC or a local area coordinator. Now, those planning positions have been contracted out by the government to non-government service providers. And so if your planner says, I'm from such and such and I'm an LAC or a local area coordinator, that's perfectly legitimate. That's the way it's meant to be. And about 70% of people will get their plans done by the LAC. Now, when the planner rings you, do remember it is your choice whether you choose to make a time and have a phone meeting at another time when you've got all your information ready. You also may want people in the meeting to support you. You can do that. You also need to make sure that if you feel uncomfortable doing a plan over the phone, it is your right to choose to have a face-to-face planning meeting. And then often they will come to you, or you could go to their local offices, the LACs or the NDIA. But again, that should be your choice about where that happens. And the reason it is your choice is because under the legislation, the law, the NDIS law, it says that participants have the right to have their NDIS plan developed in a way that is person-centred. So in a way that best suits the person. So if the person doesn't like little rooms in government buildings, well, then you don't have to have your plan there. You have your plan somewhere else that suits you. It might be that some people are happier to have it at their home because it's more comfortable for them and familiar. Your choice, because it should be person-centred, not NDIA-centred planning. It should be centred on how are we going to get the best funding package organised for this particular person who's coming onto the NDIS. So, where do you start? Look, some of you may be already using disability services already, a day service, a respite service, an attendant care program, a supported employment program. Most of those services will already have done some sort of plan, and they have different names, but essentially it's a support plan. It's a plan about how the staff at that agency are going to support you while you are there. So if you are there from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m, then that agency will have developed up a support plan to tell their staff what you want to learn while you're there, how you like to be supported and treated, and what are your goals for your learning and the support you're getting. So don't start from scratch with your plan. Get a copy of that. Use that as a basis, and you can start building on that if you want. Not everybody wants to do that though. You don't have to do that, but it is really useful to take that support plan and give a copy to your planner. However, if you would like to do more than that, Vala does have on its website a booklet that you can download. It's a whole of life planning booklet, and there are some key sections everyone should do, and then there's some optional ones that if they're not relevant to you, don't bother about doing them. And that will actually help you to develop up a more comprehensive support plan, because when you start to buy services are going to want to have a support plan anyway. And I've just signed up a while ago to a new service for my daughter they said, oh, we'll have to come spend a couple of hours with you to do a support plan with you and Leah. And I said, no, Leah and I have a plan. I will send you her support plan. So I sent it to them, and it tells them all about how Leah likes to be supported, what her choices are, the things she loves in life that I want staff to engage with her about and talk with her about. I don't want them just to transport her, pick her up at our place, say nothing till they get down to where they're going. I want them to have a chat because they know she loves bright colours and flowers and craft and music and fashion, and I want them to have a conversation with her. And the support plan helps them get to know what a participant likes, so that that can be a better quality of support from the support worker. If you don't tell them that stuff, how do they know what to talk about? So it's a good idea if you can do it. If you don't know where to start though, somebody may not be able to tell you what they want in their life. So a participant may have a significant communication impairment and they can't actually tell you what their goals are. That's okay, because you could write a likes and dislikes list, and you'll find a likes and dislikes list page in here, and that might be just as useful to get the voice of the person into the planning meeting, because at the end of the day we don't want the NDIS to fund the things that the person hates doing. We want them to fund the things they love doing, and so that's a good way to get started, especially if you don't know what your goals are. Start with a likes and dislikes list. But if we want to start somewhere with our goals, we can then just look at some broad goals, because you want to get flexibility. If you make your goal too specific, I want to do riding for the disabled and swimming. Okay, when you're sick of riding for the disabled and you get the flu and you can't go swimming, you can't do anything else because you made your goal too narrow. You want to keep your goal fairly broad. So like goal 2 on the slide, it's to do things in the community that I enjoy. And then the participant can choose what they do. They can try some new things. They can do the things that they've always done that they love. And you can change them according to the weather, which is really good to do too. You also can have some longer term goals. So somebody might be still living with family but may want to move out. So you can have a longer term goal to move out into my own flat. And the NDIS would fund supports to assist you with that. What they want to hear from you about your goals is life goals like these. And then from that flows the types of things that can be funded. Okay, so once you have talked with the planner will usually have to go back and put your plan together, write it all up, and then the next step happens, which is approval of your plan. Now, the NDIA could choose to say no about something you ask for. You might say, I need occupational therapy once every month to assist me with improving my independent living skills. And they may say, no, we think you can get that through the health system. We're not going to fund that. So they can approve what you've asked for, or they may say no to some of the things you've asked for. So what do you do if they decide they're not going to approve something? If you think their decision is fair enough, and then that's okay. You can make the choice not to do anything about that. However, if you actually disagree with their decision about what they are going to fund and what they won't fund, there is a very good process of review So you should always try, if you can, to get a reason from the planner. Why did you not approve my physio or my OT or my transport? Why did you think that that was not reasonable and necessary? Because that will help you in trying to get that decision changed if you know why they have said no. Now, this is something that I won't go through in lots of detail. Vala does have a tip sheet on its website called Complaints Under the NDIS. And the NDIS also has lots of different fact sheets on how to get a decision reviewed and the appeals process. Because if you want, you can go right through an internal review within the NDIA when somebody who's not had anything to do with your situation looks at it, and sometimes the decision is changed. But if it's not, you can then go to an external review, and that's jargon, but it means it comes outside of the NDIA, and there are advocacy services funded to support you with that process, and you can go to the Administrative Appeals Tribunal to take your complaint to them. And there is lots of information on that. But we'll move forward now, and we will say that your plan has been approved. The next step in the jargon is called implementation. So in other words, putting it into place. So you've got a plan that says you've got $20,000 for doing things in the community and $5,000 for some new equipment. Well, how are you going to actually get that put in place? That's what that means. Well, with the equipment, you will need to find someone to do an assessment, to make a report, to go to the NDIA around what is the best equipment so that they can fund the right amount in your plan, for example. It also means that you need to connect with services because you're the customer now, and it's just like all of the shops out there. Myers or Harvey Norman are not going to deliver a television to my front doorstep unless I have been a customer and got onto the internet and purchased it and paid for it, or gone to their store and chosen the television and paid for it. It's sort of similar with the NDIS. You're the customer, you have money in your plan, but until you give a service permission to deliver you a service and claim money from your NDIS package, they do not have your permission to provide you anything or claim any funding from your plan. So sometimes people fall into the little hole of, oh, I've got my funding plan, but nobody's rung me. Well, you have to do the ringing, or if you have a support coordinator, they can help you with ringing services, finding the right ones for you, arranging the assessments. And if you'd like that, that's support coordination that you need to ask for. And their role is helping you find and negotiate and manage all of the services that you might be purchasing with your NDIS package. It's a difficult thing to change our headspace around from being, in the past, I've had it said, oh, just be grateful for what you've got. No, under the NDIS, you're entitled to support. You know, you are the customer. It's not about being grateful, it's about being confident about living your life and being a good customer in what you're doing. Okay, the last step then is step 5, where it's review of NDIS plans. Now, most people will get a plan for 1 year. Their first plan will be for 1 year. However, if your situation is changing a lot, you might ask for a shorter one. And at the end of that year, you will have someone ring you up and say, I'm your NDIS planner, and hopefully they will say, I want to review your plan. Sometimes though, we've been getting reports where they don't make it quite clear that the how are you phone call is actually the review. So my tip from another one of our little talks is always ask, why are you ringing? And so that you can be clearer on why they're ringing you, okay? Now, when you come to that first review, it is then your choice, because this is person-centred planning, so your choice to choose whether or not you then go for 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, 6 months, whatever, that suits your needs before the next review. Some people choose to have a 2-year plan because their situation's fairly stable and it doesn't change a lot, and also it means one less meeting, and so that's your choice at that time. You can tell the planner at the review. However, I want you always to remember, under the law, under the NDIS Act, if your circumstances change significantly, such as a crisis, that means you're needing lots more services or different things, then you are entitled to go back and request an early review. So if you have a crisis 9 months into a 2-year plan, you can request an early review and get that done as soon as your planner can do it, and you don't have to wait the 2 years till the scheduled review, okay? And it's really good because that means that people can get support at the time they really need it. So I hope you've learnt some more about planning. Just a couple of other things. If your family member is a child under 18, could I refer you to the Association for Children with Disabilities NDIS Planning Workbook, which can be downloaded from the association's website, and that is acd.org.au. It's a great booklet for families who are thinking about, well, my children don't have any goals except to stay watching telly all day. What are the NDIS goals going to be? What could the NDIS fund for a child with developmental delay or autism or a physical disability? So it's a really useful planning booklet that you could use. If you feel you can't do very much in the way of planning, could I suggest the bare minimum that you do is think about the questions in this little document that getting ready for the planning conversation that is on the NDIS website, and you'll find a link on our website to this document if you need that. Do think about these questions. Secondly, do a list of all the things you need funded, all the things you're using now that will transfer across to the NDIS, and also add to that all the gaps, all the things you don't have funding for that you wish you had funding for, because in that way you can use that for the basis for the planning meeting when you come to sit down with your planner. Do remember, if you'd like more information about person-centred planning and or getting prepared for the NDIS planning, that this booklet is available on our Valid website. Thanks for listening.